Welcome to the Money Context, where we explain how money systems work. If you find this kind of explanation helpful, consider subscribing. This channel is about clarity, context, and understanding how economic systems actually affect everyday life in the United States. For many Americans, there's a strange disconnect between what they hear and what they feel. Headlines say the economy is strong. Jobs numbers are positive. The stock market hits record highs. And yet, when people look at their bank accounts, pay their bills, or think about the future, they feel broke, anxious, and stretched thin. This isn't just a personal feeling, it's something millions of people across the country quietly share. So why does it feel this way? Why do so many people feel financially stuck even when the economy is described as doing well? To understand that, we need to look at what a strong economy actually means and what it doesn't. When economists and news outlets talk about economic strength, they usually focus on a few key indicators. Gross domestic product, or GDP, measures the total value of goods and services produced in the country. Employment numbers show how many people have jobs. The stock market reflects how publicly traded companies are performing. On paper, these numbers can look impressive, and in many cases, they are. But these indicators were never designed to measure how comfortable everyday life feels for most people. GDP can rise even if the gains are concentrated among a small portion of the population. Employment numbers don't tell you whether jobs pay enough to cover basic living expenses. And the stock market mainly reflects the financial health of corporations and investors, not households that don't own significant investments. In other words, the economy can appear strong while individual financial stress continues to grow. One of the biggest reasons Americans feel broke is the rising cost of living. Over the past several years, the price of essentials has increased faster than most wages. Housing costs have risen sharply, whether through higher rents or higher mortgage payments. In many cities, rent now consumes a much larger share of monthly income than it did a decade ago. Groceries are another pressure point. Even small, frequent increases at the checkout line add up over time. Food inflation doesn't always feel dramatic in one trip, but month after month, it quietly erodes purchasing power. The same paycheck simply buys less than it used to. Healthcare costs add another layer of stress. Insurance premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket expenses have continued to rise. Even people with stable jobs and employer-provided insurance often feel one medical issue away from serious financial trouble. This kind of uncertainty weighs heavily, even if it doesn't show up in official economic data. Transportation costs also play a role. Whether it's fuel, car payments, maintenance, or public transit, getting to work and moving through daily life has become more expensive. These costs are often unavoidable, which means they reduce flexibility in household budgets. While costs have risen, wages have not always kept pace in a meaningful way. Even when wages increase, those gains are often absorbed by higher expenses almost immediately. On paper, someone may be earning more than they did a few years ago, but in practice, they may feel no better off, or even worse. Another key factor is debt. Over time, debt has become a normal part of everyday life in the United States. Credit cards are used to bridge gaps between income and expenses. Student loans follow many people well into adulthood. Buy now, pay later services make it easier to spread purchases over time, but they also normalize ongoing financial obligations. Debt itself isn't inherently bad, but when it becomes a constant necessity rather than a strategic tool, it creates stress. Monthly payments reduce cash flow. Interest compounds quietly in the background. And the mental weight of owing money can make people feel behind even when they're technically keeping up. This reliance on credit often masks deeper structural issues. If wages covered the true cost of living comfortably, Many households wouldn't need to rely so heavily on borrowed money just to function. But because the system often requires it, debt becomes part of the background of modern life. Taxes and deductions also shape how people experience their income. The number on a job offer or salary agreement is rarely what actually lands in a bank account. Federal taxes, state taxes, healthcare deductions, retirement contributions, and insurance premiums all reduce take-home pay. These deductions are necessary parts of the system, but they contribute to the feeling that paychecks don't stretch far enough. Inflation plays a subtle but powerful role as well. Inflation doesn't hit all goods and services equally, and it doesn't affect everyone at the same time. Essentials often feel inflation more sharply than luxury items. When the cost of necessities rises, people feel it immediately, even if overall inflation numbers suggest moderation. There are also many hidden costs of modern life: subscriptions, fees, and services that didn't exist in the same way years ago. Individually, they seem manageable. Collectively, they drain resources. Over time, these recurring expenses become normalized, making it harder to cut back without feeling like quality of life is slipping. All of this creates a situation where people are working, earning, and participating in the economy, but still feel financially insecure. This doesn't mean they're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean they failed. It reflects a system where financial stability requires navigating rising costs, complex obligations, and constant trade-offs. It's important to pause here and say this clearly: feeling broke in this environment is not a personal failure. It's not a lack of effort or intelligence. Many Americans who follow the rules, work consistently, and plan carefully still feel financial pressure. That shared experience points to structural realities, not individual shortcomings. Understanding this can change how people relate to their finances. Instead of internalizing stress as shame, it can be reframed as information. When you understand the system, you can make decisions with clearer expectations. You may not be able to change every factor, but awareness reduces confusion and misplaced self-blame. This is where context matters. Economic systems are complex, and they affect people differently depending on income, location, family size, health, and timing. A strong economy doesn't automatically translate into comfort for everyone, and recognizing that gap is the first step toward realistic conversations about money. The goal of understanding isn't despair, it's clarity. When people understand why things feel tight, they can engage with financial decisions more calmly. They can separate what they can control from what they can't. And they can approach their lives with more patience and less unnecessary guilt. If this explanation helped you see the bigger picture, consider subscribing to the Money Context. This channel exists to explain how money systems work and how they shape everyday life, without hype, blame, or noise. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.